So based on this particular question, right, as like any other exam, when you are given the question paper and you have the requirement down here, all right, which one do you think that you should answer first? Sorry, which one do you think that you should actually read first?
The requirement.
The
Question.
question.
Okay, the requirement of the question, all right?
Mhm.
Why do you think that requirement need to be read first?
We can scan first.
So we can.
What
We
we're
can know the
looking for.
point, what we're looking for.
So basically, it's to frame, okay, the kind of information that you are supposed to be looking for when you start reading your case. And it is also to activate, okay, your thinking from the beginning. All right. It's also to actually ensure that you have active reading, okay, to trigger your active reading. What does it mean by active reading? What do you think? What's the meaning of active reading?
Sambil baca, sambil
Sambil baca, sambil?
kita cari point yang nak jawab soalan tu.
Yes, basically, as you actually read, you're already thinking, you are already scanning, and you are already relating this particular information that you read with the requirement of the questions that you have. Even if you can't remember much of what the requirement is, because you have 4 requirements, it's good that as and when you actually look at all the requirements, my advice is to go through all this first. Not requirement number 1, then you read requirement number 2, then you read your case, look at 3, then you read your case. Scan through the whole of this particular 4 requirements. Okay, put a little bit of thoughts there on what would be the possible points that you are going to look for in the case. All right. So once you are able to do that, then at least you know that as you read through this, you will know what kind of points that you are going to pick up and becomes your points for you to elaborate in your answer. Okay. Let's go through this particular requirement that you have here. What do they ask you to do here?
Identify.
Okay, you identify. What is it that you are trying to identify here?
The issue.
The issue. How many?
Issue.
2.
Only 2. Only 2. So don't you dare to give less. Don't you dare to give more. All right. When they ask for 2, don't ever think that if you give more, you will get more marks. There's no such thing, because you either your lecturer or the marker or the examiner will only be giving you marks for the first 2 issues that you have already identified. And they're not going to read the rest. Why? What's the purpose of this particular test? Is to see whether you understand the instruction from your superior or not. Okay? If ever you are to work before your supervisor or your boss asks you to do 2 things, but you are actually giving you, okay, they ask you to actually do and find 2 issues, and then you give them too much. Remember, when your boss asks more, all right, it's okay for you to find more. But the way that you are going to tell your boss, if it's in a practical situation, is that, yes, since you are asking for issues, I've got several issues that I want to highlight, and you only want to, so I have already identified the most important issues out of all the issues that I've given you. Basically, that's how it is. But in terms of exam question, you are not able to defend yourself in that sense. So if the question were to ask you, all right, to identify two issues facing ELSB, then you just need to actually identify two issues. No more, no less. All right? Because you're not going to get marks. Definitely, if it's less, you're not going to get 2 marks. But if it's more, you will not get more as well. All right? So there are two things here. There are two instructions given to you here. This is the first instruction given to you. And you have another one. Break your answer. All right. And next is for you to explain. Explain how environmental scanning and monitoring would have helped them predict and detect changes in business environment. What's the key thing inside this particular second part of the requirement is this one, scanning and monitoring. You need to know what they are. If you don't know what environmental scanning is and monitoring is, you'll not be able to actually answer this particular question. But you can gauge basically what they are. All right? You can gauge from the term of scanning and monitoring. Basically, you are able to gauge even if you have not read it. But here we are talking about scanning the environment and monitoring the environment. Okay, if they are to do that, then that would actually help them predict and detect changes in the business environment. So basically, you know, right, you are supposed to be identifying two issues. And definitely after that, you have to explain about this particular activity of scanning and monitoring the environment that would have helped them in predicting and detecting the changes. All right. Whatever changes that you have found, okay, look into how it would spark, okay, a problem or trigger a problem to this particular organization. And that's the reason why you do all this particular scanning. And you need to monitor them, because why? You need to know to what extent that would be an issue for ELSP. Okay, once you have understood the first question, look at the second one. I hope you understand what the terms is. The two verbs in the question one is basically identify and explain. What does identify means? What does explain means? What does it mean?
Identify just state. Kalau explain kena in detail lah nada. Or not.
You were saying identify what?
Identify meaning just state the issue. And then explain is like in detail.
Explain in detail. So what is it that you are, so you are trying to identify the issue, and then you said you just, is it just stating or writing what the issue is?
Writing what the issue is.
Okay, writing what the issue is. Okay, it's not just putting in the issue, that's listing. All right? So what you're gonna have after that is, okay, you're supposed to be explaining about environmental scanning. So divide your answer into two parts. Identify, and then the next part would be explained. So it's good to have the first part, which is to identify. Okay, you identify in the first part of your answer, then the next part would be you explain. All right, but you must take note, what is it that you're supposed to be explaining here? Okay. What about this particular second part of the question?
Sorry, madam, again.
What does analyze mean?
Analyze mean.
Let me see if I still keep it. I will share with you what are the verbs. Those are the task words ataupun they call it as verbs. So why is it so important that you need to know what they are?
So that we can answer the question.
So that you know how you are going to answer the question, isn't it? So at least you know what are the kind of how you are going to put your points together. Okay, it's not just simply putting in what you know about it. All right, so it's about answering the requirement and putting in what they want you to do. And this particular verb actually frame how your answer would be, and what are the elements that you should put in, and what are the elements that you should not have inside your answer. Okay, so that's why it's very important for you to know what this particular verb means. Once I find that particular list of verbs from, I think the faculty did give this before, but once I find it, I will actually share it with you. Okay. Okay. What is it that they want you to analyze in this context?
General environment factors.
Okay, they want you to analyze the environmental factors of ELSB competitive position. All right. What kind of environment factors that they want you to find? Is the general environment factors. Okay. So what is the general environment factors? Apa you faham mengenai general environment factors from what you have studied?
External factor.
Is external factors. Which external factors that you are going to use in this context?
General.
General. So which one is basically the general factors?
Which cannot be controlled or predict.
So basically, when we talk about environment factors, okay, general environment factors, okay, remember, we are talking about, and they're talking about comparative position as well. So basically, what do you think? Is it internal or is it external?
External.
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 So basically, we're talking about external, all right? So when it comes to external factors, what do you know about external factors?
Outside of the organization.
Yes, what else? Definitely, what you were saying is it can't be controlled,
Cannot be controlled.
right? It cannot be controlled. So in this context of the question, at least you know those are the criteria of your general environment factors. Okay. So something that can actually affect the competitive position of ELSB. And if you are to ask me, yes, you do learn about all of them, and you know that you have learned many models, okay, that can help you to analyze these particular factors. Either you will use that particular model or you are not going to use it. It's okay unless the question asks you for a specific model. All right. So if the question asks you for a specific model, then you need to use that particular model. Okay, if they name it, like use Potter's diamond or use Potter's five forces or use your pastel analysis, then you use basically those particular model to help you. But in this particular question, they did not specify which particular model that you are going to use for this particular analysis. So whichever that you remember, as long as a general environmental factors, and you, even if you don't know what they are, but if you know that as you read through, right, specifically to the case, and that element is the general factors, just use it. All right. Sometimes you can remember it's political or it's legal or social demographic factors or whatever. You can't even remember that. Okay, the specific terms. But you know that anything that's outside, anything that's general in criteria and it's outside the organization, basically that would be something that can affect this particular competitive position of ELSB. So you analyze them, just mention what they are according to what's given in this particular case. All right. So you don't have to be like so specific, putting in the headings of legal factors or social demographic factors. But if you can, why not? Okay. But if you can't, but you know specifically, you instead of putting social and demographic factors, you are saying what? Changes in terms of customers' demand. It's acceptable. Okay, that one is actually acceptable. Changes in terms of the political situation that actually will affect ELSB, fine, acceptable. Even if you don't know the exact terms, okay, or words that are being used for that particular model. To me, it's even much safer in that sense. You still can you still can give your answers and you can still have the chance to get the full marks. So what about the third one? Make sure it's 3. No more, no less. All right. What about the third one? Semua ni jawapan kena relate to the case ya. Jangan pandai-pandai you jawab general je. No, it has to be relate to the case. Whatever factors that you find that you want to put here, it appears in the case. Then only you mention it here. Even if that's a general environment, but if it's not affecting them in this particular case, so you don't actually put it in. You only put in those related to ELSB. It has to be contextual in this sense. Again, another one more. Based on the case, you are to. Satu question dia banyak explain. Okay, you kena explain. What is it that they want you to explain? Value chain analysis of ELSB primary activities. So what is it that you must have in your mind at this particular point of time? Apa yang kena ada dalam kepala? Apa primary activities that you need to actually, that you have learned?
Inbound, operation, outbound, marketing and display.
So basically, those particular elements, okay, need to be explained in the context of siapa?
ELSB.
ELSB.
So what is the nature of inbound in this particular ELSB? How's the operation like in ELSB? How's outbound like in ELSB? So you need to identify that activities and explain that particular activities, okay, in the context of ELSB. Even if you know that the primary activities are inbound, all right, operation, outbound, what else do you have? Sales and marketing, and you have after sales service, basically. Even if you know that particular element, okay, and those are your primary activities, but if you don't know how to explain it in the context of ELSB, forget about it. You're not going to even get 1 mark. All right? You will only get marks once you relate it to ELSB. So like I said, no matter how long your answer is, if it's a general answer, not tying it back to the case, you will not get a single marks. Okay? Not a single mark will be given to you. Remember, it has to go back to the case. If you start answering generally, or forget about it. Don't ever try to request for marks. Okay? As and when you answer them, you need to actually go back to the case. Okay? So this is how it is. This is similar to your final exam, basically. Because all are case study, and whatever answer that you give must be related to that particular case. Any question?
No, madam.
All right, understood? Okay,
Yes, madam.
all right. So same goes to the one that you have down here. What is it that you have down here? Referring to this particular statement, the best CEOs are always aware of what's going on outside their company. Their perceptual acuity, okay, allows them to sense what's coming. They've already tell you what this is all about. Okay, detecting early warning signals, keeping pace with changes in the external environment can sustain a competitive da 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 da. Okay, basically this is the part that are related to this particular connotation. So you need to find who he is, look at what he has been doing and how he reacts to things. Why? Because you want to see whether he's demonstrating this skill or not. So you are to justify your answer. Justify your answer means what? What does it mean by justify your answer? What does it mean by justifying your answer?
His
To
reason,
prove it.
So you have to actually, once you have already assessed he has, then you just justify. That means you must convince people why you say that he has it. So just give reason for that. All right. So basically, they're not telling you how many, and you have 10 points. How many justification do you need, and how many assessment do you need? Bila dikata assess, apa maksud assess? Apa maksud assess?
Evaluate.
Then if they ask you to evaluate, then what you're supposed to be doing? Let me, I think I found it. Mm. Have a look at your WhatsApp. So where can you find assess?
Dekat C5.
Dekat C5. What does C5 means there? Kalau ikut the thinking skills is on the high side of your higher order thinking skill. Okay. So when you are asked to assess, all right, you are to appraise the value or the situation. Okay. Sama ada dia ada ataupun dia tak ada. So both ways should be actually looked at. All right. If you say dia ada, why you say it? If you say he doesn't have it, why do you say that he doesn't have it? Okay.
Okay, madam.
You all dapat? Dah dapat dah yang tu?
Dapat, madam.
Hmm. Okay. I will try to check. Selalunya yang I hope I still have.
Madam, yang question 4 ni, madam.
Mm-hmm.
Perlu ke definition perceptual equity tu?
Perlu? Question 4? Aha. Kenapa question 4?
Kat yang ni,
Aha.
yang perceptual equity tu kan. Waktu menjawab soalan, perlu terangkan apa itu perception.
Apa itu perceptual equity?
Kena terangkan ke dalam jawapan.
In this context, dia cuma nak, okay, you bagi tahu to assess if Edmund Lee ni ada tak perceptual equity. Do you think that you need to explain? Because atas tu dia dah referring to the connotation tu tadi. Did I explain to you a bit what perceptual equity is all about? So there's no need for you to actually explain again. So use answer straight to the point to assess Edmund Lee punya perceptual equity. Go straight to the point. Okay, go straight to the point. Masa is only 1.5 hours. So basically you have 40 marks question. So 1.5 hours is how many minutes kalau 10 marks? You ada 90 minutes, ya kan? Times 90.
19 tu.
Basically satu soalan tu dalam apa?
20, 21, 22.
22 minutes. So tak payah fikir lebih-lebih. Apa yang ada dekat case, that's it. Kalau tak ada dekat case, forget about it. Okay? Forget about it. Don't think too much. Just think within this particular case given to you. Okay. Once you have identified all that, then you start reading your cases. I know it's a long case, but to help you in actually understanding, make kita buat interesting sikit. Alright? Tak ada you orang ngantuk ni. So what you do is break your paragraphs, alright, into small chunks or small parts. Macam ni. Supaya dia tak adalah, walaupun dia memang panjang pun kan, tapi at least not so bad. So you bahagilah sikit kat sini. Try to break it because there are paragraphs here. Alright. So at least you are looking at this part. Bit by bit. Alright. Pieces by pieces. Okay. So when you read this, okay, pieces by pieces, start to jot down something here. Sebab you dah ada in mind just now what the questions are. The first one tadi they talk about what? Identifying issues and explaining, asking you how this particular You have to explain how environmental scanning would actually help them detect and predict and detect whatever problems that they are facing, isn't it? Okay, predict and detect changes in business environment. Okay. So as you read through in your question number 1, what can you get from there? Extravagant Leisurewear Sdn Bhd commenced as a family business in 2010. It owned large 2-story premises in Sungai Petani. The ground floor was used as a warehouse, and the upper floor, consisting of offices and workshop, are used for embroidery and printing process. If you ask me, they have this particular process taking place. And because that I've already read the requirement, indirectly what I can say here is that, oh, I think this particular company, sorry I dekat rumah, so you dengar bunyi anjing sebelah tu menyala. Okay, so basically, okay, when you talk about this particular question, this one is actually telling you about what? Apa tadi? One of the question ada mention pasal primary activities. Okay, pasal what? Value chain. Oh, this is something that I can use for value chain. The company bought clothing from France and decorated the items with embroidery or print for their individual customers. So indirectly, you can sense that there's a process here. And this is part of what? Is it inbound operation or outbound agak-agaknya? What do you think?
Inbound.
Two things. Okay, when you talk about inbound, you're talking about this particular
Clothing from
raw
France.
materials comes from France. So you're talking about raw materials now. It's the clothing, right? And what else that they mentioning to you here? They are going to decorate it, okay, with embroidery and print. So basically this what? This is an operation taking place. So you can explain about this. All right. So you have some of the elements here that comes from that can help you to explain the primary activities. So that's the reason why you need to actually read through your requirement just now. Even if that you read the first question, it doesn't mean that it has to answer the first one immediately. Okay, you might find it for something else as well. Okay, what else? It says here that Edmund Lee and his wife Ellie were directors. Edmund concentrated on sales, while Ellie looked after the accounts and general administration. Edmund's sister Maggie ran the embroidery and printing machines with the help of part-time assistants. Okay, the part-time workers were not the most reliable. So Edmund or his wife used to help often Maggie to fulfill orders if they were due. Although this deflected their attention from sales, all right, they had a full appreciation of the work involved in decorating the garments. Okay, so what basically that you can get from here? Apa yang you dapat daripada sini? What do you think? Senyap je semua orang ni. Ke tengah digesting.
Hmm.
So as you go through, okay, since we only have about 10 minutes more to go, tak apa, nanti you baca lagi, you digest So as you read through this, I'm just telling you how it's going to be answered. All right. So like here it says that, okay, you can sense that there's an issue basically here. All right. This particular issue is that they're talking about unreliable workers. Why do you think this is an issue? That can also be an issue, all right? Then sales grew steadily until 2015 when Edmond negotiated with a distributor in France to give ELSB exclusive rights to a range of leisure wear, including t-shirts, polo shirts, hoodies, and fleeces. Okay. The exclusive rights resulted in ELSB serving two different markets. Individual customers who wanted embroidery or print, and retailers that did their own decoration. Remember, okay, these are the two type of customers that they have. Individual customer, the other, another one, retailers. So as a result of this, sales increased significantly. Consequently, more pressure was put on the print and embroidery side of the business, result in both the individual and retail customers had to wait longer. There was also added complication because ELSB was now competing with some of its customers. All right. So the margins of sales for the embroidery and print companies were very tight. Although volumes were high, ELSB often found cash flow a problem as these companies took extended credit. Right? Edmond felt ELSB had little option but to accommodate this as ELSB competed with other distributors from Alustar who offer credit terms to their customers. Okay. Although the quality of ELSB's products was excellent, its prices were slightly lower and these other distributors charged for lower than these other distributors charge for similar products. This is because ELSB did not carry the same range of products and felt it needed to undercut the competitors' range of products it sold. Up to this point, ELSB was serving many markets, including corporate wear, hospitality, all right, hospitality market, workwear, and also sports club. What else do you have? As a booming market started to wane, would this be creating something? Take note of it. All right. The corporate wear and workwear markets were becoming saturated as many companies selling these types of clothing found themselves with too much stock. So by the end of 2017, Edmond and Ellie had decided that in addition to supplying to trade customers, ELSB should concentrate more on sportswear market, selling directly to clubs, this and that, okay, and colleges where margins were very much higher. They expected that when ELSB started to focus on sportswear market customer, its retail sales, embroidery, and print companies would decline significantly. So Where do you think that you are going to actually put all this information? Okay, you need to actually start thinking about it. Why? Because there are elements down here that you need to actually consider as well. Remember, you also have these 3 general environment factors of ELSB competitive position. It's given here. You're talking about the economy, okay, that's slowly to actually win. So what is actually the implication to this ELSB? What else can you talk about? Demand of the market, all right, which actually makes them had to focus on what? What do you think that they have done?
Focus on sportswear.
Focus on sportswear. Why we are talking about there's an influence by? What makes them focus on sportswear?
Higher margin.
They're talking about higher margin. What makes them think about that? What triggers them to move towards that? Ingat, you have 3 general factors just now.
Corporate wear and workwear markets will becoming saturated.
Yes, basically the market becomes saturated, so they need to find new markets, isn't it? All right, so basically those are your environmental factors that affects you. Why? One, the booming market is no longer there, and after that they are talking about what you were saying just now about this particular new market that actually they can venture into. All right, because why? Because the existing market has already become saturated. All right, so they move. What else? The activity of moving from one particular market to another, okay, because admin realized that, all right, they have to change somehow or other. And that attitude of admin can be related to answering the last question just now about the perceptual acuity. Okay, so even if there are certain parts of these particular points, you can actually use to answer different requirements. You can also use that same point, tweak a bit on your sentence. You'll be able to answer the final question. If you focus on admin's behavior, then you use it to answer the final one. But if you are focusing on the environment, then you are actually answering for the second question. And if you are focusing on the activities that they are doing, then you are answering this particular third question. So basically, some of the points here that you have can be broken down into answering several questions. So you need to actually practice so that you'll be able to see which aspect of the points given in this case can be used to actually answer different questions and which one is to answer another different question, but it comes from the same particular paragraph. Okay. Any question? You ada kelas ni? Ada kelas ke lepas ni?
Ada, madam.
Okay.
Ada.
Tak ada kan? So kita finishkan ni sikit. So basically, okay, once you know that one, okay, the quality was reasonable. Okay, this here mana lah. Sales were slow. Let me erase. Sales were slow to start with, but gradually increased over the next 2 years. ELSB kept a range of colours that suited most Kedah football county teams and as a result was able to supply teamwear quickly and could add club crests, sponsors logos and numbers themselves. The quality was reasonable rather than top of the range but was priced accordingly. And this strategy was successful. ELSB looked at adding teamwear for the other sports and added soccer, rugby, and basketball because of this success. At the end of 2020, it added sportswear for athletics, boxing to the range and added training equipment that suited most sports. ELSB was surprised to find that the expected decline in sales to other print and embroidery retail companies did not materialize. The retailer companies thought the company's stock range of the sports clothing because of the competitive price. Okay, the retailer company bought the company's stock range of the sports clothing because of the competitive price. Football is the most popular team sport in Sungai Petani, followed by the club football and hockey. The sports clothing and footwear market in Sungai Petani was worth 338.4 million in 2019, and the sports equipment market 128.9 million, okay, from this particular mentioned in this particular magazine. Over time, ELSB found that many schools and clubs wanted more exclusive designs for their playing kits and team wear made to their specific requirements. ELSB had developed a good working relationship with factory in Bangladesh. It asked the management team if it would be willing to manufacture custom-made sportswear for ELSB customers. So basically, what do you understand from that particular case? What can you understand from this particular case? Would you want to try this out first? Any question?
Madam,
Yeah.
sekejap. Yang isu tu kan,
Yeah.
boleh tak yang corporate wear yang saturated market tu jadi isu?
Boleh.
Oh, okay. Thank you, madam.
Alright. Dia ada banyak isu dalam ni. It's not only the two that you are supposed to be identifying. There are several issues inside here. And the way that you are going to put it in a form of sentence is very important. Alright?
Okay, madam.
Okay. What else? So why not you try out this one? Alright. If anything you asked. Okay. Sebab this lagi you tak try nak menulis lagi tu. Nanti I bagi you the sample answer for this. Okay? Any question? Senyap je macam mana you all ni senyap betul. Sungguh-sungguh punya senyapnya. Hmm. Ya. Ya, apa dia Iman?
Astaghfirullahaladzim. Tak nak tanya tu je. Typing ke writing?
Typing ke writing? Writing pun also can, up to you.
Nah, okay.
Mm-mm.
Dia ada.
Right. If you feel that you're comfortable with writing and you want to scan and submit, fine. And if you feel that you can type faster and you want to type, then it's fine with me as well.